Hey y'all, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ashley, and if you're a new viewer, welcome. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel because every week I am sharing my favorite recipes that I make to pass around my own table when friends and family come over to eat. This week we are making an awesome and delicious appetizer. This episode is blue cheese and bacon stuffed mushrooms. We'll kick things off by preheating our oven to 400 degrees. Then, because I like to multitask and make a recipe easy, we're going to bake our bacon in the oven rather than fry it on the stove. And that gives you nice and crispy bacon that we're just going to dice up into pieces and put into the filling of our mushrooms. So again, I have a sheet pan. I like to use the quarter sheet pan when I'm doing small batches of bacon. It's just less to clean and takes up less room in the oven. And I line it with foil to make cleanup easy. And I've got 4 pieces of thick cut hickory bacon. So I'm not using a maple or an apple wood or anything like that. I just really like the flavor of hickory in this recipe. And we're going to bake it until it's nice and crispy, so probably 12 to 15 minutes. While the bacon's cooking, we're going to go ahead and prepare our mushrooms. So the first step is to always clean your mushrooms, especially if they're whole. Sometimes I'll take sliced mushrooms and just rinse them under water, but to clean a whole mushroom, I just take a dry paper towel and then just wipe off any dirt that might be on the mushroom from when they were harvested. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it just takes a little bit of the dirt off on the outside. And then once I've cleaned the top of the mushroom, then we're going to take the stem out. So we're actually going to use the stem in the recipe as part of the stuffing. It adds a little bit of bulk into the stuffing without adding breadcrumbs or anything like that. So to do that, you're going to very carefully just push the side of the stem forward and backwards, sometimes side to side, until it releases. So you want to make sure that you're not doing this too aggressively because that will cause the stem to break and then you'll have to kind of scoop it out with a spoon. So if you're just really gentle and just push forward, you can hear a pop. That's when it's dislocated from the actual base of the mushroom and it will just come out really easily. So you want to do that for 1 pound of mushrooms. For this recipe, I like to use white button mushrooms. You could use cremini if you'd like to as well. And you also want to make sure that you use really big mushrooms. So now grocery shopping is a little different in that you can't always go to the bulk section and pick up fresh produce. Sometimes it's already prepackaged. I was lucky and was able to find a pound of mushrooms that were really large in a package, but that's what you want to keep your eye out for. If you can pick them yourself or if you can find them prepackaged, make sure that they're really big because they're going to shrink when we are baking them. There's a lot of moisture inside of a mushroom. And so to keep them nice and big and appetizer size, just make sure that you look for the really big ones. So we'll make sure that we have the stem taken out from each of the mushrooms. And like I said, we're going to use those in the recipe. So I have them in a bowl and I'm going to put them in a mini food processor. I mentioned that this is one of my favorite pieces of kitchen equipment that I totally overlooked. I have a huge food processor and I use it all the time. But when I pull this out for dressings or pestos or little tiny small batches, it's definitely my favorite thing in the kitchen. We're going to go ahead and put in the mushroom stems. And we're using the food processor instead of using a knife and mincing them. So if you don't have a little food processor, you can definitely do this with a knife. It just takes a lot longer. So this is just a quick shortcut to get the appetizer out faster. So we're going to pulse it a couple of times until it's at almost a mince or a very small dice. If you've got some of them that are sticking on the sides, just go ahead and stop and give them a push down to the bottom because we don't want to over process the bottom and under process the top. We do kind of want them to be all the same size. So just make sure that you do that if you see some of them are getting stuck and they're not moving around the food processor. Okay, so we have our mushroom stems nice and minced. We're going to put them back into the bowl that they came in. We're just going to reserve them for a minute. We will actually be sauteing them in a pan. And now we're going to lay the mushroom caps out on a sheet pan and we're going to bake them to get some of the moisture out. So I have a half sheet pan and I'm going to lay each mushroom down to where the hole is actually on the bottom. And this is going to allow moisture to escape from the mushroom as it's baking. So these will go into the oven with the bacon until the bacon is finished. So again, we're putting the whole side down and just space them out a little bit. If you're doing a double batch, they can all be put on one sheet pan. It's okay if they're touching, but we'll just space these out since we have the room. One has a little extra dirt on it. All right, this is going to go into the oven and bake for about 15 minutes. What you'll see is a little pool of moisture around each mushroom, and that's when you'll pull it, usually 12 to 15 minutes. So let's go ahead and put this in the oven. While the mushrooms and bacon are cooking, we're going to go ahead and saute the ingredients that are going into the stuffing. So I have a 10-inch skillet. It's a non-stick skillet. I really love Scan Pan. I'll put a link in the description for the pan that I use. And I have it over medium-high heat. And we're going to add some extra virgin olive oil to the pan, about 2 tablespoons. So we'll give this a minute or 2 to heat up, and then we will add in our onions and mushrooms. And so we'll add the onions in. They'll start sizzling. And then we will add in the mushroom stems. And we're sauteing these until the mushroom and onions start to soften, and they're not bright white, they're more of a translucent color. And this is just ensuring that we don't have a raw onion or raw mushroom stems in the filling. So we'll cook it for probably about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, our mushroom stem and onion mixture has softened. It's been cooking for about 5 to 7 minutes. And I'm now going to put in 2 cloves of garlic, and we'll just stir that just until you start to smell it. So again, just taking that raw edge off of the garlic like we did with the onion. And we'll add some salt and pepper, about 1/4 teaspoon each. We've got the garlic combined, and now we're going to remove it from the heat and put it into a bowl and set it aside. Our bacon is finished cooking, and it's nice and crispy, but not too crisp. It still has a little give to it. It is going to go back into the oven as part of the filling. So we want to finish it right when it starts to get a little crispy. And we're going to put it onto a cutting board and cut it into tiny slices. So a small dice. Okay, so we have diced up the bacon, and that goes into the bowl. And then I'm also going to add in 1/2 cup of blue cheese. So we have 1/2 cup of blue cheese. That's also going to go into the bowl. And we'll just give it a stir to fully combine all the ingredients together. And if you're making this ahead of time, you can actually make the filling up to this point and then put it into the refrigerator overnight. So when I've had dinner parties and I want to make an appetizer and several courses afterwards, I will make this the day ahead, put it into the refrigerator, and then about an hour before guests arrive, maybe even 30 minutes before the guests arrive, I'll go ahead and bake off the mushroom caps that have already been destemmed because the stems are in here. So I take the mushroom caps and then I bake them and then stuff them and put them back into the oven. So that way it's just one last step that I'm taking whenever I'm having friends over to entertain. All right, let's set this aside and we will go check on the mushrooms. I'm sure they're ready by now, and we'll start filling them. Perfect, the mushrooms are ready. So you can see that there is a little round circle of liquid around all of the mushrooms. That's the moisture that we wanted to leach out a little bit before we stuffed them. As I mentioned, mushrooms have a lot of water in them, so they shrink when they're cooking, which is why you want the large mushrooms to begin with. But we also don't want a really watery mushroom when you bite into it. So this is just a little trick to take some of the moisture out before we stuff them. So they're very hot, but we're going to take them and just turn them over. If you want to use a little spatula or a fork, you can do that, but you can kind of just squeeze the top and it releases from the pan. So we're turning them over, and then we will be filling them with the bacon and blue cheese stuffing. Again, be very careful. This pan is so hot. It did just come out of a 400-degree oven. So we'll take our spatula and just make a little clump of mixture, a little tiny ball, and we'll just lay it on top and push it into the hole where the mushroom stem used to be. So I like to just kind of use my spatula to create the little mixture filling and then just place it on top of the mushroom. And you want it to be proportionate to the size of the mushroom. So if you have a smaller mushroom, obviously you use a little bit less filling. If you have a larger one, then you can do more. We will go ahead and fill all of these and then we'll put them back into the oven to bake for about 10 more minutes. Okay, these are gonna go back into the oven and they'll bake for about 10 more minutes. All right, now it's time for my favorite part, which is the taste test. So we're gonna take one of the little smaller ones and just do a 1 bite. They're so good. A little bit juicy, which is good. We didn't do all the moisture out. And then that strong flavor of the blue cheese and the meatiness of the bacon. It is such a great appetizer. Thanks for joining me today as we made bacon and blue cheese stuffed mushrooms as an awesome appetizer to pass around the table when friends and family come over. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. We post new content every week. Until next time, cook great food in your kitchen, share it with those that you love around your table, and we'll see you soon. Did you know I'm a personal chef? Servicing Austin, San Antonio, and surrounding areas. Email hello@southernwithafrenchtwist.com for more information.